So, are we living in the end times? The end times? And what does that even mean? This is a ongoing discussion I've been having on my YouTube channel since the beginning. And I probably have a very different perspective than I did when I was younger. Although, since I was young, I've felt that due to the circumstances of us living as we do right now, and the population boom that we've had, that something is bound to happen. And even as a kid, even not being able to foresee AI becoming a reality and an actual threat, which it may or may not be, definitely not on my top of the fears list. It's not AI that I would fear. It would be the outcome of an improperly implemented electronic system that runs very important and delicate services. For example, having the potential to have a virus or a hacker take out the electric grid or the water stations and things like that, which we're already there. We already have this. In fact, there's data to show that, China already has backdoor access to some of our facilities and our electric grid and water facilities. Don't know how much of this is true. I can't confirm nor deny who has access to what, but I do know with 8 billion people on this planet, and a large percentage of them, in China, and having a huge percentage of their population that are hired, for example, even the 50-cent army, which their whole job is to go online and to dispute anything that goes against China, or to find and arrest anybody who has anything bad to say about China that lives there. It's very authoritarian in that way, so the people just kind of go along with it. Not to get into, countries and politics here, but the fact that we have such a competitive nature between us as humans, and that we've failed to see through this, to be able to cooperate. Now, there are definitely benefits to some aspects of globalization. For example, it's allowing, in theory, more people to sell their goods in more places. But that's in theory. When you have tariffs and taxes and incentives and lobbyists that, make it more expensive for the average person to make a purchase, then that's not doing anything to benefit people. What I'm getting at here is that the system that we have in place to even buy a loaf of bread at the grocery store is so reliant on electronics and technology that one large solar storm could set us back decades, and with that, chaos would ensue. And would that be the end times? No. And I think that this is my long way of introducing the discussion about what end times actually means. And before I made this video, I don't do a lot of research on specific topics unless it's something I'm really covering in depth. But I wanted to look at a chart, and this is from the Pew Research Center, and who knows how accurate polls are, but I trust Pew Research. They do a pretty accurate job. In fact, they're, the most renowned for doing so, as far as I know. And they asked what percentage of different groups of people believe that we're living in the end times right now. The natural sirens, they come up every time. Perfect timing, right? Oh no, it's the apocalypse. The Pew Research Center had asked, I don't know how many thousands or tens of thousands of people, like in various places and groups, do you believe that we're living in the end times right now for humanity? The percentage that said yes, and this is in the United States, so the percentage that said yes was 48%, compared to, I believe it was 59%. I guess the rest were undecided, but we have on basically a 60-40 ratio of people who don't versus do believe that we're actually living in the end times right now. And I know that a lot of folks would break this down to religion, because this is what I've always said, is the evangelicals that, have the most extreme views. And the reason this is dangerous, and the main point of this isn't to say whether or not we're living in the end times, but to make it clear that there are a lot of people out there who are trying to manifest end times and who would love to see things go to hell because that would bring back their savior or whatever they believe. And I wanted to know the actual percentage of people who believe this. And the evangelicals, since they're a lower denomination, the amount of people who identify as evangelical, they had the highest percentage of any of the religions of believing we're in the end times. I don't recall exactly. It was like a 60-40, or maybe it was like 70, up to, I think it was close to 70% believe that yes, we're living in the end times. But with Christianity in general, it was about a 50-50 split, like 47-48, something like that. The thing that fascinated me was in the black religions, or black versions of Christianity. My apologies for not knowing the proper terms, but within black communities that are Christian, it was the highest ratio of believing we're in the end times. It was like 72 to 20 something, 23 or something. Unbelievable. I was like, is this due to the history of black culture in the US and the way that people have been treated? Or is this something specific to the way that they process religion in those churches? And it's fascinating to me when I went down the list, and this is the point I wanted to make. The largest disparity of those who believe we're in end times versus not, besides the small group of evangelicals, was the educated versus non-educated. So those with high school tended to, like, say, those who didn't make it through high school tended to believe more that we were in the end times. And as you get more education, whether it was college graduates, gradually people believed less and less that we're living in the end times. Now here's my question: is that due to a person becoming more worldly and educated about things? That's a possibility. Or could it be that the more we educate ourselves, the more we convince ourselves we know what's really going on and what's best, and it's harder for us to believe that any of that could be true? And I'm not just talking about prophecies and the belief that God's gonna punish the wicked and Jesus will return. These are serious beliefs that people have. In fact, as much as people don't want to talk about this, I'm definitely sick and tired of talking about it, even though I haven't made a single video about it. Actually, I've made 2 videos about what's going on in Palestine and Israel. And yes, I'm aware Palestine isn't an actual country, but it should be, because nobody's going to resolve any issues as long as we treat other groups like shit, like they're worthless dogs. And this is just a tit for tat thing that has been going on for quite a while. But yeah, in very extreme views of various religions, which doesn't include all the believers of that religion, to make it clear. I definitely know the difference between Judaism and what's actually going on with some of the most extreme versions of the belief of any particular religion, and this would be Zionism. And in Zionism, they believe that this, for the prophet or the savior to return, then they must, that the land is entitled to them by God, right? And this is a major issue because people get really hung up on this terrorist group did this and these people did that. What is the root reason that we're fighting about stupid shit out in the world? It's not always religion, but religion is almost always used as a weapon for people to gain control and power by convincing populations that that's what's important, that we need this, we need to do this to protect ourselves and protect our nation. And people fall in line with it and they believe it. So when we have nuclear powers that are instigating violence against other countries that are much lesser prepared, the natural answer is going to be for them to lash out any way they can. And here we are. And some of the most dangerous, the most likely end time scenarios have everything to do with the fact that we have, what is it? How many is it? 12,000 nuclear weapons between us and Russia mostly. We used to have many more, and we got rid of most of them. It's either 6,000 or 12,000. But if you've never seen, the scenario for nuclear war, I highly urge you to go look these things up and watch a video of the most likely strike scenario if a nuclear war were to break out, and to really understand how close we have come to these things. Because with all the natural disasters we face, whether it be an impact or, which would create its own type of impact winter, like a nuclear winter, like a large asteroid or comet hitting Earth, or whether we have a major grid meltdown because of a solar flare, um, those are things that we can't control. But who pushes a button? We can. And a couple times we've come pretty close to going into all-out nuclear war, and it's the individuals, the people, the folks who were manning the missiles who made a second guess and decided not to push the button. And this is on Russia and the U.S. Side. But now so many more people have nuclear weapons, and all it takes is just one mistake. And so I wouldn't like to believe that anybody would want to use a nuke, but I know there are plenty of people out there who, if they had access to it, would set one off just to prove a point. That's because people are scared. And what I want to get at here is that the belief, whether you believe we're living in the end times or not, humans will probably survive no matter what happens on this planet. Unless you believe that, there's going to be an actual divine intervention here where, say, for example, Jesus does return and, takes away the righteous and punishes the wicked. There's a rapture, just like, right out of the movies, right? Everybody's just gone and their clothes are laying there and everybody goes, okay, what now? It's so important that if you're a person who believes that's going to happen, and this is just from my heart to you, if you're a person who believes that there may be a rapture or a punishment of the wicked on earth, to just please take it to heart that just because a person doesn't believe what you do doesn't mean that they're wicked. And I know this seems obvious, but I've had many discussions and used to be debates, which I won't even debate it anymore. But I had a couple of subscribers over the years that were considered themselves Christian and said that since I don't believe very specific things that they believe, such as Jesus as being the one and only Savior, for example, then I'm going to be punished in hell, and then I'm just wicked and I'm possessed by demons. I've heard it all. And I realize that that's because people are scared of their own beliefs. The average person is not going to accuse you of being evil just because you don't believe what they do. But I've realized it came from a place of insecurity, because I've seen this in person. You meet people and you want to respect them, and you want them to respect you. But if your instant reaction is defense because they don't believe what you do, for example, a person who realizes I'm not a Christian might think instantly that I'm an atheist and that I'm just living for myself. These are the assumptions people make about one another. We need to stop making assumptions about people. We need to know each other's heart and intention. Intention is 9/10 of the most important aspects of humanity, right? Not what you believe or who you vote for. These things don't matter. Most people are on the fence about most things, and they feel forced into one belief system or another, or one political view or another, because everybody around them has chosen a side. And I think my friends go crazy when I have a political debate and I'm arguing against both sides and for both sides. For me, what's most important in life, in understanding life, is truth. And I don't mean the truth. There's probably a truth out there. But I know that we are all perceiving things through our eyeballs. We all see things slightly different. Our brains process what we see and don't see. And that if we're too wrapped up in how different we are, we'll never embrace the most important similarities. And those have everything to do with the fact that most of us want to be kind to other people, make an effort to help those who are less fortunate, would run to save another human if we saw them drowning or, in a fire. People do it all the time. And these things come naturally. You don't run up to a burning car and ask the guy, "Are you a Democrat?" That's not how people operate. But on top of this, most people just want to live a happy life, to have friends and family that they love and support, and vice versa. And maybe to have kids, maybe not. Maybe to get married, maybe not. But most people want companionship. Most people just want to be loved. And if they're not, I would say look out. When people aren't respected and they don't feel loved, they will lash out. And when people make assumptions about others, they assume that other people have bad intentions. This is why we ask people what their intentions and beliefs are. And I've found in so many discussions, people don't care about your reasoning for why you think the way you think, or what you believe, or how you feel. They have no interest in that whatsoever. They want to bring up some fallacy or something unrelated in order to prove some previous point, because a lot of folks are still stuck in the mode of being right. And I said this before, I'll say it again. It's not about being right, it's about being correct. It's about both people being right. An argument or a debate, discussion even, both people should walk away with something to gain. Not feeling bad about who they are, or having somebody disagree with an assessment about a politician so they make fun of the way a person looks. These kinds of fallacies, the ad hominem attacks. I would say it's got to stop, but it's never going to stop. That we've created a false dichotomy and a false division among Americans. And I am speaking for America now. I know most of my subscribers live in the US. And also, I think 96% of my viewers are male. So we are American men trying to navigate this crazy world. Many of you are older men, and you've lived through the times when things were, let's just say, a little bit of a more celebratory as far as, living in this country and being proud to be American. Look out, Bumblebee. And then there are many young men out there who probably hate this country. And the older generations don't understand why the younger generations are so frustrated and, don't have the same love and patriotism they did. Instead of yelling at them as lazy kids on their computers, start trying to understand why they feel the way they feel. What were you taught when you were young that made you love this country? Maybe a lot of it was delusional. Maybe there were things to hate as well back then. Look at Vietnam. A lot of people spoke up on what the U.S. was doing because we became aware of it, because for the first time a war was televised. But beyond that, we have to say, if you're, say, over 60, 70, which I don't know, not a lot of my viewers are, when you were young, you were told if you just graduate high school, do the best you can get a job, you can buy a house, you can get married, and as a sole provider, a person with one income, you could afford your house, your bills, your utilities, your groceries. If you look at the numbers today and the way that inflation has increased versus wage, it just hasn't kept up. But on top of that, all you have to do is look at the numbers. It's not that people are lazy. We are working harder than ever as a nation. It's a fact. There are people out there who are working, 70, 80-hour weeks just to try to, stay afloat. And that's not right. I mean, I have a skill. I'm a carpenter. I found one job where I get paid decent, and I stick with it because the wage is good and because I'm respected. But I realize if I didn't have that trade, I would be stuck working for some $15 an hour job. And that sounds like a lot to people who might live in, say, Alabama or Mississippi, because minimum wage down there is even lower. And if you're a server, like a waiter, waitress, a lot of these places pay you $2 an hour. Some of them don't pay anything. You only get tips. And this is acceptable, This is allowed. There should be a federally mandated minimum wage, definitely, for all workers, because it's the corporations that take the most advantage. What I've found is the small ma and pa businesses, the small companies I've worked for, they want to pay you a living wage because they want you to stick around. And the bigger a company gets, often the less they care. I mean, you may get benefits, which is a great thing, but when it comes to actual wage and caring about the employee. So the point this having to do with end times is the fact that so many young people, it's not that they believe we're in the end times, it's that their mind has seen an apocalypse within their lifetime, which is an awakening. And we've seen, this is, on, you might see various ads and clips where it says, the greatest transfer of wealth in history. I just thought it was just another kind of clickbaity title until a year or so ago when I really looked into it and realized how much money has been transferred from the poorest to the richest. And this really picked up steam in 2008 when the banks completely were caught red-handed in the act of giving out bad loans so they could repossess houses. And then millions of Americans got screwed over because of a system that they trusted to tell them, yes, you can afford this, right? I mean, and not just that, but Iceland and other countries, went semi-bankrupt because of the way that their banks were loaned a bunch of money that they shouldn't have been. And the party was over. But instead of the Obama administration bailing out the people, they bailed out Wall Street. And I was so ashamed that I even voted for that guy after that. I thought this is the one opportunity in history to pull ourselves out of war zones and to pull our heads out of our ass and stop giving money to the banks. And then the banks just gave millions of dollars in bonuses to their top executives. And America has been slowly declining ever since financially. And we haven't recovered from 2008. And about every 10 years or so, some kind of slight decline happens, but eventually this compounds into a major depression. If this country falters and it collapses because of the way that things are going and, no more incentive for the future for kids, what do you think they're going to do? Our country will be doomed, and I don't want to see that happen. We have enough problems, the homeless issue. I mean, I got in a debate with a guy smoking fentanyl on the sidewalk, like 8 blocks from my house when I was walking to the store, and I got a little in his face, or I should say he got in my face, but I definitely said a few things, and didn't back down, and I let him have it, and I felt bad later, and then I thought, no, this is my neighborhood, I live here, it's just going to get worse. And this was about a month ago. I drove by yesterday, that same area. Now there's like 8 more cars and vans and a bunch of dudes standing on the corner. Many of the neighborhoods in Portland have, like the Lentz neighborhood, has so many homeless folks that, there's no recourse. The neighbors can't do anything. There's drug deals and violence and noise. Am I blaming homeless people? Hell no. I've known homeless people. Hell, my niece was homeless and she died from an overdose a few years ago. Many of you probably remember me talking about that. And I know a lot of people don't want help, and a lot do. But the biggest issue isn't to blame the homeless. It's to say, how do we live in a system that allows this shit to happen? And you can't just throw people in prison. There's other countries without the same homeless problem that have a much lower prison population. We have more prisoners per capita than any other country. In fact, we surpass like the next 5 countries combined. It's ludicrous. We're doing things wrong. So I guess when I talk about end times, the reason I'm talking about my country is because I know that the world's never going to go through a major end times. There will be a major natural disaster or even a nuclear war would definitely cause annihilation of many of the Western countries, and the world would be in chaos. It would be Mad Max out there. But people would survive and rebuild. We haven't lost the knowledge, and we damn sure haven't lost the will to make things happen. And I think that we as humans can do a damn good job if we put our heads together. So we need to put our heads together, but hopefully take a shower first, because we're pulling them out of our ass first. Don't want to be sharing any germs. So I appreciate your time. I'm going to take my boys camping, so I've got to get them ready and prepared. Kind of go through this rites of passage thing, which is another thing young people need. And I guess I needed it too. Never really got that. So I wish you all well. Thank you for listening. As usual, if you want to support my channel, you can visit me on Patreon at Carpo719, or you can donate through PayPal. And if you want to get more information through podcasts. You can check out my podcast, which is 15-minute free thinking. I'm horrible about posting links and descriptions and all that. I just make a video and upload it, so I suppose if I did that, maybe my videos would get watched by more people, but really that's not what this is about. It's about finding the right person at the right time. And so if I can walk away with one positive message on this, it's, don't worry about an apocalypse in the world. Worry about our personal apocalypse, because the term apocalypse is really more of an awakening or becoming aware of something. It's an unveiling. And that's what we all need to do with our lives, and to understand ourselves better. And then maybe we could get along and stop fighting over things as trivial as we have been. Maybe what we're going through is just growing pains. It's something that we need to do in order to achieve a better mindset for everybody. As I said, the pendulum swings both ways, to the left, to the right, to the up, to the down, back and forth, and of course through the fourth dimension. Peace out. I'll talk to y'all next time. Be strong. Make it through this shit. It's all we can do. Tomorrow will come.